We are not disappointed with Forsaken. We set out to build a game that Destiny players would love, and at Bungie, we love it too. Building Destiny for players who love it is and will remain our focus going forward. Hey everybody, it's your buddy Beard Grizzly, and the words that I read here just a little bit ago come from Luke Smith himself. Say what you want to about the man, say what you will overall as in terms of what he's done for this franchise or what we deem that he's done for this franchise, but those words speak mountains to me. They are overall words that I haven't been hearing spoken of by those that are either pundits or in any case critics of what Destiny has become, is, or was. This is so important to sit back and think about when we start to think about what Activision or what Bungie has effectively done with this game, or what it is that they built it up to be, that it almost drives me a little mad. What I see from a large amount of creators that are out there right now in the larger space, and I'm just going to call a few names because I already know, a couple of you probably already know who I'm going to refer to here, but names like Jim Sterling, or Yang Ye, or B. Dobbins, or some of the others, even if they haven't made videos about these topics recently, they have done this in the past already. Destiny 2 has been one of these games that's been an easy focus point. It's been one of these games that's been easy to bring up and tear down, and just to say, hey, here's a game that's doing everything that we think is wrong, and it's just doing it wrong. Meanwhile, we now see that there is something that really gives me the hints that there are a lot of problems that are going on behind the scenes, that are effectively here, that are not, in essence, something that shows a very good working environment or working relationship. And that is one of the biggest problems that I think we're going to start to see as the months kind of go by as Destiny is progressing. If you are not familiar with what I'm talking about, Destiny 2's earnings call had happened from Activision not long ago, and the long story short on it is that they said that it just wasn't performing well. So their idea now is to throw more microtransactions into the game to make it so that it does earn well. Well, obviously to me and to pretty much everybody else that I think is out there, we're all going to say about the same thing. Why the heck do you think that's a good idea? What we've seen between these two expansions, between Curse of Osiris and Warmind, is this different dichotomy. If we look at how Curse of Osiris was, and then subsequently how the Dawning was, we start to notice how the amount of microtransactions in the game started to kind of dwindle, or at least their focus on them, as heavy as they were, started to also definitely dwindle. Warmind started to show that there were ways that we could get things at least a little bit more easier and a little bit more openly with the Matrix being introduced, and they also started to have things on a better rotation. They also put things in like a little bit of exotic duplication, protection, and a few other things that I know aren't working exactly as they had hoped to or what they had talked about, but they are there nonetheless, and it's at least taking away some of the chances. The focus on it seems to be pulling away a little bit more. And then we get to Forsaken, where it feels like I never have to honestly bother buying a loot box or doing anything else, because the amount of EXP that I'm gaining, either from just performing activities that are being given to us because of bounties or anything else, is just helping to push that EXP bar even further. And realistically, because I'm having more fun with it, I think it really does take down the amount of time that it takes for me to actually get a hold of some of these loot boxes or anything else that's within the game. Overall, it just feels like Forsaken went in the direction I was hoping to see, and there are some that are really up in the air about what's going on with the new system that's out there where you can buy emotes directly, but that's how we had it back in the day with D1, and I would almost prefer to see that be the case as we go along, period. Get rid of the other stuff within Eververse, or just have it as like paid silver and that's it. The price tag would have to be worked on heavily, however, because charging $10 for an emote is still ridiculous when that basically takes care of a quarter of some of these expansions, or no, literally is the cost of some of these expansion pass items that are coming up in the future. By the end of the day, there are many that are spending into these systems, and if I have to leave that on any note, it would really come down to the fact that if you don't want to see these systems progress, then don't purchase anything into them. That's really what it comes down to. But what we're seeing is a lot of people are still into the idea of either random chance or otherwise. And largely, I have to say that that's partially just due to the nature of how games are kind of evolving and changing. But I am getting slightly off topic. I've already put in my 2 cents when it comes to Jason Schreier, but here I think he does kind of highlight mostly what it is that I'm thinking of. Some of our other franchises like Destiny are not performing as well as we'd like, Activision just said on an earnings call. Meanwhile, the Destiny fan base is happier than it's ever been, so I guess the tension between appeal to hardcore and expand audience will continue. Overall, this just comes down to how gaming is effectively progressing, how our moods have changed, how everything else has kind of changed over. We want to basically play these games and not have to worry about spending an extra dime because that is what we're used to, and I'm all for that, quite frankly. Overall, it really does come down to the way that publishers and earnings are made, and we have to look back at shareholders for this. They're ultimately the reason that most of these practices get put into place. They're the ones that are giving publishers a bunch of money. They are the ones that effectively have a lot of the means to add in capital and to say, hey, this is what we want to see. Now, give us our money back on the earnings that we're giving you. And overall, I guess that's how the system works. Like, that's legitimately how capitalism works. That is legitimately how we overall just see the economy, or has overall flourished in the past, well, several years. Several years being, last about 100 or so. But we're starting to see that this is being very difficult on those that are either artistically working or those that are otherwise with these corporations or with these publishers, or realistically for these developers as well. Effectively, it feels like the shareholders just aren't getting their money back in terms of investment. We're even seeing that with things like Apple, where they find that the amount of overall units being sold for iPhones is going down, and they've just lost $40 in a little over a month's time from the release of the iPhone XR. This isn't rocket science overall. This just is really falling into the fact that they are not taking a ton of extra money from us. I only have so much money that I can put into these companies, and they don't necessarily seem to see that, or at least a large majority of investors seem to possibly miss it as well. Overall, it comes down to a disconnect, and I am overall sure that I kind of just put the nail on the head with where this disconnect comes into place, and it comes down to the publishers being told to do something by the shareholders, which then goes back down to the developers, and they are then told to change out how things are altered or done within a game overall. What's funny here is that they overall are saying that they are not thrilled with how Destiny is performing, but they're not saying in terms of either monetary or in terms of how the amount of people are playing the actual game is. I would probably guess more the former over the latter, because I don't know a lot of people that are very disappointed in how Destiny 2 plays at this point. Destiny 2 Forsaken in general just added anything that I could have hoped for the franchise and took it to the next level. I haven't really reviewed that yet, now that I think about it. What cannot be understated enough is that as Forsaken progresses, we have continued to get more story elements as it's unraveled and kind of changed over time. This is done in a, at least I feel, rather clever way of expanding on the Dreaming City story, the Awoken story a little bit more, and just altering how I perceive a lot of what's actually happening within the game's world. But unfortunately, artistic intent and what it is that you can otherwise do with the value of $1 doesn't always translate well, and that is effectively what we're seeing here with how Destiny 2 would like to be and how it seems Bungie would like to be versus what Activision and shareholders ultimately want to do. They just want to wrench more money out of you versus having a quality product and making something that could be for the record books. And if I have to go too far into why it is that I think that, I don't really have to look too far past Diablo Immortal or whatever it is, because I'm trying to wipe that from my mind as it is. Just having a mobile game like that off of a beloved franchise and not having any posted ideas of what you're going to have for a Diablo 4 or anything otherwise, and then also aggressively attacking your fan base over the fact that you're either not going to play well with it or you're not interested in it because it's not on PC, and why aren't you interested in it? Y'all have phones, right? I think the last 2 years has ultimately showcased how disconnected it is with either the people that are buying games or really playing them, because I haven't really seen a lot of titles that have, performed well to a lot of marketed opinions and publishers' ideas and feelings, unless you're like God of War, then I know that one did very well. Or otherwise you're breaking even or doing something else that's kind of like right around the same idea. Overall, it comes down to the ideas of what an economist versus an artist would like to actually do with a title that they see. It is something that in the end has to be a balancing act because they are trying to make money off of the product that they are selling. But it comes down to how much money can we actually make off of a product like this. And I used to remember talks like that when I was reading magazines back when I was younger. It was actually something that they were physically trying to think of and actually get out to the public now and again. It was a balancing act. Now it just feels like, well, just throw more money at it and hopefully it'll go ahead and win. I think back immediately to how Square Enix was with Tomb Raider and how they also were with Hitman. And now they no longer own the properties for Hitman because they decided that, it's not making us enough capital because we weren't able to get back anything off of what we put into it, which was just insane amounts. Tomb Raider, if you're not familiar, the first Tomb Raider remake that had come out, they expected it to do 7 million copies in order to actually break even, if I remember the number. It's right around 7 million, I know. The AAA industry is just asking for more and more and more, and overall, that's really what it just comes down to. And that is, I think overall, just more of your cash than much else. I'm having a really hard time with trying to balance this idea or see a company that is trying to balance overall what it's attempting to do with the creative aspect of their titles versus making cash. And here we see a bit of light with that, at least in my opinion, with what Forsaken is. Forsaken is trying to do something creatively different, or at least trying to make itself into what it wanted to be when Destiny 2 had come out. And now at this point is being told by the ones in charge, the ones at Activision, that they may have to add in a bunch of other stuff that may cut their overall server populations again. And I just don't want to see that happen. So as much as this has been a big old ramble fest from me, I just hope that my words in some way reach out to you and you kind of understand where I'm coming from with this. The ideas are, again, just why we're kind of picking and choosing, why certain creators are doing what they are doing effectively by not keeping everything equal. If one company is affected by their publisher, another company has to be affected by their publisher. If one developer is going to be pushed to do something by the same publisher that is underneath that house, then something else has to be happening. And if you have some employees that are vocally speaking out on how they are happy with what they have created, regardless of what is coming back from shareholders and what is coming back from the publisher, don't you think that deserves a little bit more of a call out? Don't you think that deserves looking into a little further, doing investigative journalism like you're supposed to do, and try to figure out exactly what it is that's going at the bottom of either these publishers or developers and their overall relationships? In addition to that, it's to simply say, I support Bungie in everything they do per this point that is coming from Bungie. Because the next thing that comes around that either tanks the game, gives it a bad name, or has something else that just absolutely floors us and is not related to some kind of system within the game for either story or weapon systems or something like that, and it's a microtransaction system, that is Activision. That is not Bungie. And we need to figure out who, in the end, is the one to blame for that. Again, listen back to the tweet I said at the top of the show, because I think that says just about everything. There are people at Bungie that just are not happy with what's going on with Activision. Anyway, before I continue with this ramble session, you guys know the buttons to press down below if you did enjoy this little commentary piece of mine. I wanted to make sure that I got my feelings out there, because overall I think that's about all that matters to me at this point. But overall I think that there's a lot of topics within this realm that deserve talking about, or deserve kind of showcasing that it's all interconnected in a way. It's happiness and it's unhappiness in a lot of different places, and to find balance right now seems to be something that is not easy for anybody. But anyway, Guardians, thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next space time. Take care.